Yiqian, rising junior in UNUS College. I'm gonna major in Arts and Humanities.
I'm Rachel from the same college as Etienne, UNUS. I just graduated in May and I'm an urban studies major and I'm interested in architecture.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ben. I am still studying, but I'm also holding a full-time job as a copywriter. So when I'm not writing commercially, I write a lot about occupying spaces, I guess, and like belonging and identity, things like that. I write about space a lot also, like outer space. Yeah, and usually I write essays and poems. I've never really written fictional work. Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought you meant like you wrote fantasy when you said space.
Oh, I guess I write about outer space, like motifs, like in poetry and in like creative essays, but I don't really write like fictional things that happen in space. Yes.
So Etienne and Rachel, do you guys wanna talk about maybe a little bit about how you responded to Benedicta's work? What were some of your initial thoughts and your thought process towards reading Benedicta's memoir? How those processes translate into because you guys also had a few changes along the way, right? So maybe you want to share about your thought process when reading Ben's memoir, and then how you then respond to it along the way. And then maybe Ben can jump in. I mean, I think I saw your Instagram sharing, Ben, that you went to the show and you were actually encountering and experiencing the work as well, right? So
yes,
I think you can jump in along the way as they share. Okay, so go on.
I think I can share like the beginning part, and then Rachel can share like what we finally came up with. So I guess the beginning, like when we read it, we felt very like it was a really nostalgic and warm feeling, like the fuzzy feeling, and a bit bittersweet as well, like your memoir. Yeah. So like initially we wanted to do like make use of like every single part of the trunk. I think let's call it the trunk. Yeah, so like we wanted the wheels to be like the film reels and like can tie around, and like there'll be baubles which has different like scenes from your memoir. Yeah, and it was still like the concept is still similar with like our final product, which our final like artwork, which was like the mini cinema vibes. Yeah, but it's like sort of like when we continued working on it, we made it less like more subtle. Yeah, compared to like in your face, like oh, this was the scene from your memoir. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rachel, you want to share what?
Yeah.
you did?
So we kind of changed afterwards because we realized it was a little bit too complicated and we had to deal with a lot of different mediums and we did not have enough time. So we decided to change it to a more like simpler concept. So we still kind of stuck with like the whole cinema thing with the curtains and the way that you can sit inside. But I think we kind of tried to focus more on like the concept of memories that you wrote in your memoir. So we tried to look at memories as kind of like in a very Freudian psychoanalysis kind of way. So we kind of look at it as the conscious and then the pre-conscious and then the unconscious kind of memories that we all harbor within us, and how it might present itself in different ways. So initially it can be very clear cut, like in a photograph, like in a film reel. And those are really the memories we take with us, like kind of souvenirs. And then as we go along, we kind of experience our memories in different ways, and it can become haphazard and a little bit more chaotic as we reminisce our past days as our childhood. So it becomes more like fragmented and more frazzled. So that's how we kind of like progress the whole trunk. So the top is like the conscious memories that are very clear cut, and then as we reminisce more of our past, it gets filtered in through the lamp and through all the prisms, and we come up with like a kaleidoscope of like different childhood memories and how a lot of people process our emotions and our like memories in different ways. So I think that's what we're trying to look at, like the more psychological part of the memories that is being presented in your memoir. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought the first thing that I kind of registered in my mind, like when I was there, like experiencing the whole thing, was more of like fragmentism. I guess like it was the prism part that kind of got me, cause I think it was also like when I wrote the memoir, it's also just like a background type of like for context. I didn't plan on writing about like cinema to begin with. It was like the brief was to write about some place in Singapore, and when I signed up, I was fully expecting to like come in and write about someplace else. Like I had all of these ideas about like all of the places that I've been to outside of Singapore that I've resonated with, and then when I was in the workshop itself, they were like, "Oh no, you have to write about someplace in Singapore," and I was just like, "Oh no!" Like I think with like other participants in like the workshop, it was like a little bit more clear cut for them. They had like all of these childhood homes that they were writing about, or like all of these like landmarks in Singapore that were like very clear to them. And I didn't think that I had that. So I was like, okay, the only thing that I have is like this really nondescript cinema in the middle of nowhere, and like it's not even a public place, right? Like as in like only students can go in. So I was like, oh, how do I make this into writing into such a place that like holds like significance towards me, and like how do I interpret that like for the reader. So I guess when I was writing it, it was very much in like what you said, like you know, like the first layer of like memories, and it's just like film stills. It felt very much like that to me. Like it was like one episode by one episode type of thing, and it felt like not like a sitcom, but it felt like episodic. Like I go through this is the first session that I went through, this is the second session that I went for, like in the 3 years that I've been there, and I wrote it that way, I think. So I thought it was interesting that it got reinterpreted into something that was a little bit more like fragmented and more less clear cut in that way. Like the lines are like so blurred that like all of the colors just get into each other, and through the prism things. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah. That was nice. A little bit unexpected, I guess, on my end. Yeah.
Actually, initially, like we wanted to do film strips because, you know, like your memoir is about movies and films, so it makes sense, and also still reeling, right? So the idea of film strips came to mind. So we wanted to like initially wanted to create film strips from scratch, but then like it wasn't very nice. So like I asked my parents if they had film strips, then surprisingly they did. So like I just asked Benedicta, like on the off chance that she had film strips, would she be able to like be willing to part with them for the exhibition? And she's like, yeah, she has. I was like, oh, okay.
From the film strip, we were trying to go from more of like the tangible part of our memories and our experiences to more intangible parts of how we react to it, which I think it came out in like Benedicta's like memoir a lot. Like she describes like what happened like in the film, and then she kind of like talks about how she relates to it personally, and how it kind of like parallels her own experiences of like first love and like friendship. So we thought we wanted to really bring in the whole tangible and like intangible aspect of film and memories. Yeah. So that's where the film strips came in.
And Benedict, so when you shared the film strip with them, right, were you thinking like very specifically what were the specific memories? What were your thoughts like? Because after, I don't know, maybe you will not be able to get this back anymore. How?
Generally I don't really collect the film strips that I develop, so it wasn't really something very precious to me in any sense of that word, because I do take a lot of like film photos that like mean nothing to me. It's just mostly like as like a means of practice because I just picked up a new camera and stuff like that. So a lot of it is just like junk photos of like random places and random people. So it was okay. I just kept like the ones that I need to keep in case I lose like the digital copy in a few years, that kind of thing. But whatever else, I would just like I just left it to like Etienne and just let her do her magic more than anything. Yeah.
Did you, Etienne, did you and Rachel go and try and see what's in the film strip, just in case there are little stories in there that you
Yeah, I think it was quite interesting. I can't really remember what was inside, but I know there were people that you took. Yeah, in some places.
Oh, you did go and see.
Yeah,
What is there?
very kaypoh. Yeah.
No, because I think that's the thing, right? Because it is only through a medium, this strips of it's quite a nice analogy or metaphor, I suppose. Like these strips of black and white and or like sepia gray, browns, excuse me, really are not meaningful until you put light through them or put them through another medium, right? So someone commit the time to or commit the energy to try and put this through a medium to really flip through the memories and all. I think no lah, not kaypoh lah. Be concerned and interested to know someone else's stories. I think it's something we all share. And then you don't know who these people are, and you don't know like for instance with Ben's memoir, where it's almost like you're rating you rated some shows, right? And it's like there are people in there where you give them they become meaningful to you because you give them meaning, because you make them into characters, who fictionize them into characters who are your friends and so on and so forth. And so I think those film street meaningful because we know that we take picture for some reason, right? Some important moment were recorded in this film strip. So I guess people who know what a film strip means, I guess would then be interested as well to see, hey, what are the things captured in this thing. Unlike digital image where you save it on cloud or you save it somewhere, you can access it everywhere quite easily. This film strip is you can only see when you take the time to illuminate it, which is like where the prism, right? I somehow assume that we would be able to see some image in the prism, in the light that is shining through it. Was there? Are we supposed to see some image? I know we see the diamond.
Yeah.
No, okay. 我想太多了, sorry.
Yeah, I think there's a process of having to digest it further through like another medium / lens / like tool that prescribes meaning to like the film strip itself, even if it personally doesn't mean anything to me. That's really quite interesting, I think. Yeah, so maybe in that way it also like reflects the way that like in my like essay, it's like prescribing meaning to films that generally don't really would mean anything else except to the viewer who views it and then like relates to it in their own personal way. Yeah, that's actually like was that the intended purpose, like when you guys like conceptualized like with the film strips thing?
Wait, sorry, what's the purpose that you were saying?
Or like to reflect like or like you need to use like additional light to like see, and then like that in a way is also reflective of like how people wait, let me process my thoughts. Okay, yeah, okay, the way that people like see and process like film photos is equal to the way that people process and prescribe meaning to the movies that they see, only because it matters to them in their personal lives.
Yeah, I think we wanted to make it more like a also kind of like a personalized experience. So I guess depending on the light and the time of day that people encounter the artwork, they kind of have like different experiences, and the way that they react to like the prisms as well, and how they kind of look through the peephole and kind of like encountering the artwork through their own personal lens. I think we kind of wanted to reflect what your memoir was talking about, like having a personalized reaction to films. And all these is really very much contingent on like how we ourselves like process our memories and like interpret this kind of like films and artworks. So we tried to like kind of mirror that. And I guess more maybe not so much to reflect, but we wanted to go for more of like refraction. So like kind of reflecting the memories and the films that you watched instead of like reflecting it like completely like copy by copy, because I think reflecting has like a sense of reproduction of like the exact film or like memory, but we tried to look at memories as more of like a personalized thing, and how people process things are really very different. So we tried to go for like a concept of refraction, and how the way light refracts in different ways is kind of like reflective of how we process things in a lot of different ways, and how we kind of have our memories stored in our brain in very like haphazard, different chaotic ways that is not the same for everyone necessarily. Yeah.
Okay.
Tian, you mentioned something about your responses, the responses that, I mean, I guess I caught the word nostalgia, right? So what perhaps maybe you can share a little bit more about what was it that both of you felt nostalgic, or felt that Ben was nostalgic about through her memoir? I mean, besides the key thing there, which was the location or the space of the cinema. But I think what Rachel mentioned about like using the Freudian analysis, right? So besides the very outwardly pronounced nostalgia towards a place, which is the cinema, was there something else that you picked up there that was that Ben was nostalgic about?
I think for me it was also the people and like Subway, the common motif. Yes. I think as I feel like I read as I read it, like I feel like I was growing up with Benedicta. I don't know if it's weird to say, but like because I feel like the years progress, right, in the memoir. So I felt that like when she was looking back at her poly days in like the film club, then I was like, wow, like I feel that feels that nostalgic feeling. Yeah. I'm not sure if Rachel has something else.
Yeah, I think we also caught it through like the use of metaphors of like sunset and like golden light leaking through the corridors. You kind of get a sense of like an era that has passed, and it's very like coming of age kind of growth sense of like the whole memoir. And we really feel like it was very nostalgic and bittersweet, because it's not just the place or like the people that Ben is missing in her memoir, but also really like the experiences, like what Etienne said, like eating Subway in the evening and kind of walking home together, just like that kind of experience that you can never get back again. We get a very sense of like bittersweet sadness. It's like you're appreciating the times that have passed, but at the same time, you can't help but acknowledge that they cannot be repeated again. So I guess that's why we also decided to like create a color scheme of like brown and like black hues to kind of like mimic the metaphor of like the sunset and like golden light.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I felt that that sense of coming of age. That word, yeah, that term is correct. Coming of age, departure from my younger days, departure from a days of the movie going and like teenager. Ben, do you have anything to share about that? Are they right to sense that?
So I've been told like about this a lot in like my writing in general, which is really weird because I try to steer away from like nostalgia as like as a theme in general lately, because I find it to be a little bit more like an extremely commodified type of theme, especially with like state controlled like narratives and stuff like that. They always try to sell like, you know, the mama shop aesthetic, the type of thing, which I've like lately tried to like
Deliberately depart from.
yeah,
Yeah.
if only because I don't want it to be like too commercialized in like my sense of way, and also because like I said, I didn't really plan on writing about the cinema to begin with, so so it was really interesting that like the essay ended up that way, because I think only after writing about it 10 years after leaving that place like did I finally like process like how much meaning I may have subconsciously like added to it, like, or like how much attachment that I felt to that place. Because when I left, I just didn't feel anything at all. I just like I completely forgot about the cinema like 6 months before I graduated, because we were all so busy. And then when it was graduation, it was just like, oh, okay, that's a place that just simply exists, and it no longer exists like, you know, in my experiences. So I mean, it's not that I didn't expect for like this whole nostalgia thing to be picked up by like other readers, but it was just that I never expected to be writing about it in that way. Yeah. So so that was a very interesting like when I was like writing it, also like it was like 4 weeks of like being very frustrated with my draft, because I didn't know where it was going, and I didn't know like what I was going to write about, because I was like, oh, this is just a random cinema that I watch movies in. But I guess like, you know, when you really like when you have to craft out like an experience into words and like make it into like an art form, I think you really have to force yourself to like see things the way that you maybe did not see before to begin with. Yeah, so that was interesting for me. Yeah. Consequently, when I was in like the library and I was going through all of that, also it felt a little bit like separate from me. Like the artwork was like a product of like a response to my work, but it didn't. Maybe it's also because I didn't feel that the work, like my writing, was mine, I guess. So when I saw it, I was just like, I felt that I was very objective towards it, which is not a bad thing. It just didn't feel like it was my experience. But also my story also didn't feel like my experience in that sense. It's like I feel like the young version of me is a very different like version of me now. Yeah, so it's like two very separate people.
I think what you mentioned about how you like you say earlier on about how you know it not took you, but then because of doing the memoir, the workshop, the writing, then you're able to process this. You didn't realize how much meaning this place had for you, and it probably took that period of time for you to process this meaning. Whether or not, sometimes I feel like sometimes we make artwork, we make it intuitively first. So creative process is like more intuitive first, and then maybe sometimes, and then after that you give it meaning, right?
Yes.
So it felt like that's what you are saying, that you kind of went through because you mentioned how you jialat, I need to find a place in Singapore. Then
Yes,
you pick up this moment, to write about, and then through that frustration you process this experience that you may not have, it may have been repressed. So maybe what Rachel mentioned about like using this Freudian analysis was quite apt. The idea that it's has been repressed and now surfaced through this memoir, through your memoir, through the experience of writing this memoir. And then from Rachel and Yiqian, another separate account per se. And I think what you mentioned about being objective, being able to step outside of yourself to view both the memoir and the response to your memoir, which is the other, is I suppose slightly different than our encounter with the past few dialogues, right? For me at least, maybe those of you who have joined us for the past few dialogue, you can share as well about your thoughts, because I think most of the a lot there were more senses of like being being the memoir was something very personal, and not that yours isn't, it's just that you see it objectively, right? Step outside of yourself and wrote about someone whom you know of 10 years ago, your younger self. Was it 10 years ago? Oh, you're very young.
Oh my god. Wait, let me think. It was in 2012, 9 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, still very young. So yeah, that's my thoughts. What about do you guys have anything else to add? Yiqian or Rachel, what do you think? Is this are you inspired to write your think of a place right now, put it in your, put it in a little box where you are maybe by chance encounter it 10 years later and go, oh yes, I've forgotten about this place that means something to me.
Now I'm thinking about all the random places I've been to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because was this place Ben, was this place, right? Was it something that you thought, oh, this is going to be meaningful to me? This is going to be my pivotal moment in life in future.
Not at all.
I mean, ever.
Sorry?
This is really like a everyday place, a very everyday place for you during that time.
Yeah. To be honest, when I joined the film club, I really wanted like free CCA points. It was so easy. I just walked in and I just watched a film and then I got a point and I was like, okay, let's just do it. So yeah, I also didn't plan on being part of like the exco in like year 2 because I wanted to continue just doing whatever I wanted to do. But they were like, oh, we need people. Can you just join? And I'm like, okay, fine. But yeah, never in my life did I think I was ever going to write about this. It was just, it felt very like youth fleeting type of thing, like looking back at it like retrospectively. But I guess I was very involved. I just didn't know how involved I was. Yeah.
Xiaoyun just mentioned, ask you guys whether there's any clubs that you're involved in, and this is the point in time where, in fact, Ben, their age right now is about your about that kind of period, right, where you are in school, you would have clubs and CC. Does this maybe let you think about, oh, okay, what is a letter I would write to my future self to remind myself of my past self? See what's Xiaoyun question. Xiaoyun mentioned, let me on my chat. Are you guys in any club? You graduated already, so were you in any clubs at all?
Yeah, I was in a lot of like different clubs and fleeting moments throughout my college career. Yeah, and I think when we were discussing about like past self, future self, present self, I think it's really interesting how we make that kind of distinction when I really feel like at the end of the day, it's still like us and ourselves. So like yeah, like no matter what, like quintessentially, we always go back to like those memories and we visit like different times of our lives and how like different parts of our lives have like evolved. And sometimes it may seem like unfamiliar to us, but I like to think like some part of like the person we were in the past still kind of stays with us, no matter how much we evolve. Which is why I feel like when you're talking about a memoir, back then you didn't think about it as much, but now you're looking back, you're like, oh, actually the club really meant a lot to me, and there were a lot of memories that I really liked. So I think that's kind of also what we were inspired about for like the whole Freudian psychoanalysis thing, how like just kind of unconscious parts of ourselves are being awakened through like writing about different memories. Yeah, so even when I think about myself and how I evolved like throughout 4 years of college, I still feel like, I'm definitely very different from the person I was when I first entered college. But then now coming out of it, I still feel like a part of me will always remain the same. Like that innocent young person who just entered college for the first time, that kind of feeling. Yeah.
I'm also in a few clubs. Like one is called Wildlife Explorers. It's very, very fun. Another one is like it's an environmental program called Chili Padi Academy. And of course I'm in some of the arts like clubs. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean like I was thinking a bit about what like when you talked about how you found the artwork unexpected. I thought it was a really cool comment. I was wondering what would you have expected more of in that sense.
I don't know if I expected anything, but I think like based on our conversation, I thought that it was going to be like a diorama type of thing. Because you were asking like, you know, the movie posters and stuff like that. So I thought it was going to be like an exact replication of like what you assumed like the cinema to be, which it wasn't, which is like great lah. But yeah, like I did enjoy it either way. And I thought like the inviting people to get in to like sit into like the seated part of it was really cool. Although it was very interesting because my friend who went in felt that it was very claustrophobic for her. But for me it was very comforting because it was just like enveloped in like darkness and like I mean if there's no dimension about how big the room is, I don't feel claustrophobic, which I didn't feel like there was any dimension because it was just dark. But for her it was like worrying, I guess, for like the fleeting few seconds that she was in, and I was just like, okay, interesting.
I feel like one part that you mentioned earlier on, you talked about how like you didn't expect it to be about nostalgia because you think nostalgia is commodified, which I think we also picked out in your memoir. Like I think one of the like persons in your memories talked about how nostalgia is like a commodity and everyone can just buy it now. So I think initially we tried to kind of look at that concept of like commodifying our memories. So I think that's why we wanted to like kind of put like movie posters and make the trunk kind of resemble like a cinema box office. So people can go there and like kind of buy a memory, you know, or like buy a film, and like, you know, watch a film and you kind of like purchase a memory in that sense. So we kind of like decided to go on that trajectory initially, but afterwards we kind of like thought about memories as more of like a complex thing. So it's a lot more complex than just a commodity. Like things that you sell to people, like of course like the concrete thing that you sell to people, like maybe mama shop or like the kampong narrative, those kind of things that government kind of sell to us, right? Even though they sell it to us in a very like mass-produced way, I think a lot of us still have a lot of different reactions to it. So like for example, maybe like a 70-year-old grandmother will have different memories of like the mama shop, of like the kampong and everything. And then how maybe like us as a 20-year-old who never really like lived through that kampong life and like mama shop, how we might react to it. So I think that's how we tried to like untie that whole like commodity kind of concept and kind of make it more of like a personalized thing more than like a mass-produced product.
Yeah, though I think like the original trajectory, like if you really wanted to do it like legitimately like a cinema box office type of thing where you can buy memories, I think that would have been a pretty cool like idea also. Maybe not wouldn't have been as personal of a response to a personal essay, but I think that would have been pretty cute and subversive in its own way. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we'll try that.
Yeah, okay. So shift gear what you mentioned about commodifying memories, right? So if memories, I mean, you know, in AI world, if memories, watching too many. So this is perhaps Ben can add into it, like your sci-fi, if you have sci-fi space narrative, if memory was something that you can commodify and incorporate to your AI clone. Just the recent movie I was watching, where she thinks that her memories are all real, but eventually she found out that she's a clone. I think Blade Runner as well, isn't it? Blade Runner also has the similar kind of narrative where he thought he was the one, and so on and so forth. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, that's my thought on commodifying your memory. Is a very possible and scary thought for the near future,
Yeah, it is quite.
besides the whole propaganda thing. Yeah.
I think we are a bit far from that. I think now more than anything, like specifically within the context of Singapore, it's more of like, cause I think big things move so quickly. People need to have something to hold on to, and I think the whole idea of like the kampong narrative and stuff like that, even if it doesn't really occur to like younger people as something that we've lived through, it's like it's maybe like the portrayal of like a more idyllic landscape that we never have had the chance to like go through. So maybe memory as a commodity in this sense is a little bit more sentimental and less like AI scary, though the AI thing could still like probably happen like 50 years down the road.
Yeah, like uploading our consciousness.
Yes, like in the Black Mirror one, what was
Yeah.
it? Junipero, yes.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah.
well, the one quote I pull up from your and that ties this thing that you said very well as the key to effective. So this is from Eli. The key to effective curation is to choose culturally impactful films, no matter how badly they've been received.
Yeah.
Would that some like tie this up?
Maybe not
So I
what
think like what you said about
not what I intended.
okay, go on, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Not what I intended, but yeah, it could well be there. Yes. Yeah. Like so Eli was a real person. And he was like a childhood crush of mine. Very gross, but yeah, he did say those words, and he was just like, oh, when we were choosing films, we did choose like the films that were most like culturally impactful, even if they are horrible. So like we had to watch Twilight because people kept talking about Twilight, and we were like, okay, fine, let's just watch it. And it was a very normal thing for like us to do. So I guess that's what he said. But I mean, like if you look at it, like so that's I think also a very interesting thing as a writer, right? You write all of these things and you don't realize all of these things connect and are reflective, or they respond to each other, and then suddenly it's just a cohesive thing that like you never expected to happen. But I guess like if people read it that way, that's completely fine also. Yeah. The product I think relies more on like the person's in like the reader's interpretation more than my intention as a writer, and I think that's completely okay. Yeah.
So you're very comfortable with I mean you have like in your poem and in your other writings, you would you say that because you have written your writing your poems and you are quite comfortable with having putting this out there, putting your memory out there to be interpreted by others in any way that they can should interpret, have the experience to interpret, or like only because you have those experiences prior, because you write creatively, you didn't you might have already an expectation that if I write in poems and they could be abstract, people should interpret in, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Am I making sense?
I think so. So maybe to answer your question, I am like almost always comfortable with like different interpretations of anything that I've written. Also because I mean, separate from this like essay and essays in general, when it comes to poetry, I'm a lot more abstract than this. So it's like I will just write some words and people will be like different people will take very different things from it. And like it's something that I've experienced through many like workshops in the short time that I've been like creatively writing, and every time there's a different interpretation. It's just really interesting to see, because it's like people pick up like different metaphors, or people will like link different things to like different images, I guess. Like for example, if I think about like the other day I wrote about like this poem about this like businessman who approached me to do freelance writing, and I changed the entire thing into like a coffee related that had nothing to do with like the businessman at all. Like the only thing that was like there was because like the only reason the coffee was there was because he invited me out for coffee for like a professional like 5-minute interview to like hire me as a copywriter type of thing. And I was just like, okay, let's write like a coffee poem about this, right? And consequently, I think so maybe to like I'm comfortable with it also because like I have gone through it myself, and like whatever it is that anyone else has taken, it will take away from it, it's completely up to them. I don't think it diminishes like my experience in that case, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, totally. Ben, can you, so from Artist Caravan from Sarin, more about your memoir title? So still reeling, literally, metaphorically, or yeah, maybe you can share a bit more.
I think it was just a random pun that I wrote, and then my memoir like groupmates like Lin and like Hui Wan and Hok Yu were like, oh, this is a great like title because it's funny, but it's also like it still shows that like these memories like continue, you know. And I was just like, okay, let's just keep it. So there's no like deeper meaning to that, I guess, except that it's a pun. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that word, funny. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So do we have any more questions or comments from the floor with regards to Ben's memoir or Etienne and Rachel's artwork? Or any concluding statement as we draw to the end soon? Ben, did you have any apprehension, or like do you have any what were your thoughts or experiences about like being part of this this exhibition or this interaction, as in like the artworks and the memoir and all?
I think my initial thought was that like, oh, this is the first time that like something that I've written will be so public that it's recreated into something else. So I was a bit apprehensive that way because it felt like sharing a very intimate part of my life. But then I got over it. So I was like, you know what, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about Etienne and Rachel? What about you guys? What were your thoughts about this whole experience in responding to a memoir? I mean, and similarly, I think is the idea that you're responding to somebody's memory, experiences, life encounter. So what were your thoughts? Do you feel pressurized? Do you feel?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting because both of us are artists ourselves, and we made like a lot of different art, but a lot of those artworks come from like ourselves, like our own personal ideas and our own inspiration. So kind of creating an artwork in response to another like artwork in that sense, I think it was a very like interesting experience because we also had to like think about not just ourselves and how we interpret like the memoir and how we portray it and like kind of recreate it in a different sense. And we also have to think about like how the writer would feel when kind of like re-encountering her artwork, or like, you know, Ben's like own writing through like another person's interpretation of it. I think there's a lot of like considerations that we had to think about as well, and how whether or not we are like misconstruing any part of like Ben's work. But I guess we kind of did with like the whole nostalgia thing, because afterwards Ben said it was more of like a commodity thing. But I think, yeah, that in that sense, there's also some sort of beauty in it. Like how Ben talked about how different people really react to your writing in different ways. And I think there's just something really beautiful about art. It's just very subjective, and a lot of different people take away different things from the same piece of work. So I guess that's kind of like, we decided to like focus more on like our interpretation and our reaction, instead of like recreating perhaps like the whole nostalgia thing with like the cinema box. So I think it was very interesting, kind of coming up with like an original piece that is like born from like another original piece. There's a lot of like bouncing of ideas. I think it's very fruitful compared to just like working on our own and kind of doing our own work. it's nice to be in conversation with like other artists and different works.
Awesome. Yiqian, do you have anything to add?
I think for me personally, it was also like more, I would say like it took more energy and effort on my part because I like responding to someone. I also, that's what Rachel said, like we want to represent the story as accurately or like as much as possible, right? So I had a lot of thinking about what do I want to like expand on in your memoir, because there's like so many ways you can go about it. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. Thank you to Ben, Rachel, Yiqian for sharing your thoughts about this whole experience and for giving us more insight to the encounters that you have.